How's it going, everyone? This is Jay from Keyboard Gaming. I've played a lot of 2D games over the years, and there are some pretty amazing 2D games out there. Developers have constantly proved that games can be filled with depth, even if they lack a third dimension. But there's not a single game I've ever played that's even come close to the level of quality Terraria has. While I mostly favor playing 3D games, Terraria seems to constantly suck me back in for another playthrough, and each experience I have with it is always completely different than the last. I've been convinced that Terraria is the greatest 2D game for a while now, but I'm more convinced than ever after the release of Journey's End, the final Terraria update. It's honestly kind of a bittersweet moment for me. The update is absolutely incredible, and adds so much new content that it's overwhelming. But the name Journey's End refers to the completion of a game that I've been obsessed with for over 7 years. Although Terraria came out in 2011, Journey's End was released in May of 2020, and the PC version reached an all-time peak of 486,000 concurrent players. This is an insane achievement for the game, but a lot of people still seem to bash Terraria despite its raving fanbase. I'm gonna be honest here, Terraria is my most played game of all time, but I'm going to explain why I think Terraria is the greatest 2D game ever created. I won't be discussing the basic gameplay here since I'm assuming most people are familiar with it, but I will be talking about the reasons I think the game is so good. The first thing I should cover are a few arguments people have about why they don't like Terraria. Argument 1. Terraria is a 2D Minecraft. All I have to say about this is if someone honestly believes this, they probably haven't played the game for more than a few minutes. The basic similarities are mining blocks, building, crafting, and fighting zombies, and that's about it. Minecraft is a game focused on building and surviving, whereas Terraria's core gameplay is focused on killing monsters and upgrading your character. You do spend a lot of time mining and building, but both of those experiences are so completely different from Minecraft that it doesn't feel similar even a little bit. Argument 2. Terraria doesn't have a goal. The game does lack a story, so it's easy to see where people get this argument. There's no main quest to complete either, leading many people to aimlessly wander around until they get bored and quit. Terraria is a sandbox game with RPG gameplay, so you need to enjoy both creating and exploring to get into the game. The new Journey mode gives players more options than ever before, since it basically allows you to play the game however you want. I see forum posts all over the place where people say they don't like the game, and one thing they all have in common is that they barely even played it. You need to give Terraria at least a couple hours of playtime before deciding you don't like it. It's a highly versatile sandbox game that'll give you basically infinite ways you can play. But if you don't like any game that lacks a story, then Terraria probably won't be on your list of favorites. So with these two arguments out of the way, I'm going to give you every reason I think Terraria is the greatest 2D game of all time. Number 1. It caters to a ton of different playstyles. This has been the case for many years, but Journey's End gave us an insane amount of new ways to play. Master Mode is insanely hard, but it's a great challenge for veterans of the game. Journey Mode is basically creative mode, but with a lot more options to play with. You can basically create your own game rules for unique playthroughs, such as insane enemy spawn rates but playing on a low difficulty. There's also the core difficulty levels, softcore, medium core, and hardcore. Softcore characters only drop coins upon death, and in my opinion, is the best way to play the game. Medium core characters make the game a bit more like Minecraft, in that you drop everything when you die, which forces you to have another set of gear for recovery runs. Hardcore, on the other hand, is only for people who don't mind losing everything. When a hardcore character dies, that character is entirely deleted from existence. You become a ghost that can float around the world, but after you leave the world, that character is completely gone. Journey's End also brought along native mod support, giving modders an easier way to add whatever content they want. My point here is that with all these options, most people will be able to find a playstyle that's right for them. Number 2. Terraria is about the journey. To enjoy Terraria, you never really need to think about beating the game. Once you have the best weapons in the game, there's not much else to do besides building cool things around your world. My personal favorite part of Terraria is from the start of the game up until the point where you beat the Wall of Flesh. There's something exciting about being vulnerable in a new world and having to blaze your own trail. Progression is slow at first, but eventually you get good enough gear to start exploring the world more freely. You need to be very careful every step you take, or else you'll easily be killed by traps, monsters, or lava. But entering hard mode will give you access to some insanely overpowered gear, which, although that gear is awesome, it makes the game less about survival and more about grinding. Beating the game basically makes you the god of your own world, but it almost seems pointless unless you're planning on doing a lot of building. My personal preference is to stay in pre-hard mode as long as possible. I enjoy that feeling of vulnerability and survival, and I love to find creative ways of navigating the world. Terraria never really was about finishing the game, but rather about enjoying the journey along the way. Number 3. Terraria has been constantly refined since release. I remember the early days of Terraria, when there were only a couple bosses and a lot of little things that needed improving. The developers have listened to the community in every single update, and everything they added only made the game better. If you ever played the first version of Terraria, you'd barely recognize it from what it is today. The final update added over 1,000 new items, and the changelog was literally 40 pages long. I followed every major update that's come to Terraria, and none of them were ever disappointing to me. It really takes a lot of creativity to somehow manage to please the community every single time, yet somehow Relogic has managed to do that with every update. In addition to that, the game never cost more than $10 on Steam, and every new update was 100% free. I honestly can't think of a game so cheap that has so much value packed into it, so it definitely deserves its overwhelmingly positive ratings on Steam. I could probably go on for hours talking about reasons I love Terraria, but I think those 3 reasons are why the game has such a raving fan base. The community for this game is probably one of the best communities I've ever seen, and that community can only be attributed to the amazing work Relogic has put into it. So, while Journey's End is the final update for Terraria, it'll be adored by fans for many years to come. There may have been some extremely impressive games released in the last decade, but in my opinion, Terraria is the greatest 2D game ever made. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We also have a Discord server that's open for everyone to join, so check out the link in the description.